The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today, so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Eric, are you there?
I'm here.
Unbelievable. I have no preparation for you because you didn't send me preparation.
Well, I trust your higher judgment.
Oh, it's not. All right. Where do we start?
Well, wherever you'd like to.
No, that's why you know what? Here,
Yeah.
Why don't we start with the last papal visit to Israel? Well, it was in May 14 when Pope Francis first went to Jordan, and he promised that the Last Supper room in Jerusalem will be ours, and he equated Israelis with Syrians, who by then had murdered 160,000 Syrians, made refugees of 2 million. That was his start. What was that about?
Well, I just think the Pope was there visiting his revived Latin kingdom of Jerusalem. He has an utter hatred for the Jews and prefers the Arabs over the Jews. So that's generally his policy. And so he has to demonize the people, the Jews living in Israel. So that's what he does.
Tell the Jordanians that he gets the Last Supper room. By the way, that's on my
By the way,
side.
the Last Supper room is ridiculous. There's no such place. That's Roman Catholic nonsense. That's Roman Catholic Last Supper room. It has nothing to do with the Bible.
Why does he think it does?
Because they have their satanic religion that has Christianized Babylonian mystery religion.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Okay, Roman Catholicism is Mystery Babylon religion. You can read the great book, The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. It tells you that Romanism is not Christianity. Never has been, never will be, is not today. And so everything...
What is it?
It's Mystery Babylonian religion. And it's the same religion that was in Egypt with Isis, Osiris, and Horus. It has nothing to do with the true Christ, the true Messiah of the New Testament. Nothing. That's why they kill. That's why they kill people like me that preach and read the Bible. Okay.
A little confusing. Now I know the Last Supper room because there's a yeshiva in the same building, and they've essentially been neutralized. And essentially, Israel has given the Vatican their Last Supper room. Well, they think Jesus had a dinner there, and before he was crucified, he had a good dinner, and that's why the room was sacred.
Oh, they think Peter went to Rome. Ridiculous. Their religion is absolutely non-historical, not able to be validated with their Last Supper room. It's all nonsense. It's Romanistic religion. That's all it is.
All right, I'm going to go on to the next part of his trip. After Jordan, where Israelis were equated with Syrians, and by the way, that's a story in itself, but let's just say he goes to Bethlehem. He stops at the wall. There's a wall that really prevents terrorists from just having a free reign on Israel from Bethlehem. And there's a little itty-bitty piece of graffiti that says, Bethlehem looked like Warsaw Ghetto, free Palestine. He stops there and he does a little prayer. And obviously, they probably wrote the graffiti. Obviously, it was an international photo op. What was the message?
Well, Bethlehem, as you know, is a little Arab town. They drove all the Jews out. When I was
They
in
drove
Bethlehem,
all the Christians out.
they drove all the
80,000. They're down to 7,000. They drove everybody out.
yeah,
But
no matter if they're Roman Catholic, whatever, they drove them all out, and that was for the benefit of the Pope. Don't you think for one second the Pope could have prevented that? He could have prevented it. But I was in Bethlehem back in 1976 when I was stationed in Germany, and I went to my first trip in Israel there.
yeah.
And I went to the Church of Bethlehem there, and the guy that was there was the most lurch zombie that I've ever seen in my life. And we went down, and he talked like this, and we went down into the Church of Bethlehem there, and it was the most musty-smelling, dead, diabolical place I was ever in. So it's all nothing but Romanistic edifices that they have, and they gave it to the Muslims.
Are you talking about the Church of the Nativity?
Yeah, the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem. It's a disgusting place. I was down in it.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I've been there as well for the Christmas celebrations. I went for the, the pomposity and so forth. It wasn't musty. It was.
Yeah, where I was, it was musty. It was down we went downstairs in the basement or wherever it was at, and saw all these icons and things hanging. Typical Romanistic religion. All ritualism. Has nothing to do with reality. Yeah, I was so glad to get out of there. Oh.
All right. Now, because you didn't send me anything to talk about, I'll talk about this visit. Pope Francis. He was there at Manger Square, and he invited Shimon Peres. Oh gosh, I hate looking at this. He invited Shimon Peres, president of Israel.
Oh, what does that tell you, Barry? He's inviting his little papal court Jew there to make sure that he's going to give him a nice little tour, because Shimon Peres is going to do exactly what the Papa wants him to do. He's always been that way, and he always will, as you know.
I know.
Isn't that disgusting to see the leaders of Israel kowtowing to the Pope?
Not all of them.
Most of them.
No. Well,
Okay.
ultimately, it seeps through the system. When your president goes to Rome, he invited them for a heartfelt prayer of peace.
Oh, yes. A real heart.
Hello.
Oh, good. You've got Daisy on. I don't know.
I can't hear. I don't know why something is wrong with the connection.
It's okay. We've got Eric on.
Eric came after all. That's good.
Yeah.
Daisy, how are you?
Fine. How are you, Eric?
Doing fine.
Good to hear from you.
Nice to hear you, too.
Yeah.
Daisy, listen to this.
I'm going to listen. I was drawn to come back. I don't know if I'll stay the whole time, but I want to hear what
it's
you guys
an
say.
important show in our way, Orlando, and now we've got Bethlehem. Basically, Orlando, Hebron, but let's go this way. He invited Abbas and he invited Peres to do a little prayer for peace. Now, the difference is Peres he had no power in theory. It's entirely symbolic. Abbas actually ran the joint, but they all met in Rome. And
Abbas the criminal who denies the Eurasian Jewish Holocaust. And he wrote his doctoral dissertation on that. Yeah.
Could you
wonderful guy.
Expand, please? I didn't know this.
Oh, yes. He denies that the Eurasian Jewish Holocaust took place, and he wrote it was either his master thesis or his doctoral dissertation. Yep.
Well, he and Shimon met in Rome, and they did a prayer together,
I'm sure it was heard. Oh, yeah. They weren't praying to God, that's for sure.
It wasn't the leader of Israel. It was the symbolic, non-functioning background Peres versus a real leader of the Palestinians, agreeing for peace. They were going to give the Vatican 63 sites in Israel.
Great. And of course, there's no such thing as the Palestinians. That's nonsense. There's no such thing as a Palestinian state. They never had it. And this is all nothing more than an agitation of the papacy to constantly keep Israel in a quandary so that they'll never have any possible peace there. They drove all the Jews out of North Africa, 800,000 of them. It's all Judenrein. Jordan's Judenrein. But the Jews can't have their own nation there somewhere in Israel. They have to have the continual Arab agitation with the Palestinian bit. And furthermore, you realize Japan gave, quote unquote, the Palestinians $1 billion? $1 billion?
Well, that's to buy Toyotas. I mean, obviously.
Well, that's to facilitate the agitation so they can buy weapons. Yeah.
All right. Let's keep with this.
Okay.
Listen, you weren't supposed to be here, and I prepared something in your absence. So let's go with my summary.
Okay.
Leah Rabin wrote an autobiography. Now, it wasn't widely read, but it was. Look, she said that Paris, unlike every other Jew in Poland, you're talking pre-Holocaust Poland, he was educated in a Jesuit school in Poland. Didn't know that, did you?
You told me that when I was in Israel many years ago when we met there. And I've tried to find that in the book that you mentioned, but I just can't seem to find it. But if you give me that reference again, I would be happy
I'll go on the internet. I'll be glad to. It's only like a line or two. She didn't see the significance, but more to the point, Pope Francis, he's named after, the Franciscan order, which along with the Benedictines, they were behind Operation Paperclip. In the late 40s, early 50s, they saved 100,000 Nazis from facing up to their crimes.
Of course.
They spread them worldwide.
Of course. Franciscans are very much involved, and the Franciscans, of course, ran Jasenovac, the concentration camp in Croatia there.
That is. I don't know what that is.
There's a book called Yugoslav Auschwitz and the Vatican. It's a tremendous work, and it shows that Jasenovac was a big concentration camp there in Croatia. They killed hundreds of thousands of Serbs and Jews, and the ones who ran it were the Franciscans.
When was it? When was this?
From 1941 to 1945.
Okay. All right.
Even Loftus mentions it in his book Unholy Trinity.
Actually, Loftus is very. I met him. I trust his integrity.
Well, I think on that topic he's good, but just remember he was trained by the Jesuits at Boston College. That's why he continued to facilitate the nonsense of the Cold War.
Darn, I forgot that. Gosh, what a complicated world it is. Look, the point of the matter is that this Francis and this Operation Paperclip are very, very much tied together. He named himself after this god-awful attempt to make the Nazis free.
Well, yes, and the Jesuits oversaw that. Remember, the one in charge of bringing the Nazis into America after World War II was none other than the infamous, diabolical American Pope, Francis Cardinal Spellman. And you can read about that in a book titled The American Pope, written by John Cooney in 1988. So he brought them all in. And he was the one that oversaw it. There was a secret treaty of Fort Hood where Dulles was involved and certain top Nazis to bring them all in after the war. And that's exactly what they did. Bring them in the FBI.
Well, I wouldn't say all, but the Americans got the useful ones.
Yeah, well, at least 50,000 of them.
I think
I met one of them. His name was Freddie. And he had a very strong German accent. And he wanted to give me an SS overcoat. It was a beautiful thing. I said, no, thanks, Freddie. I said, let's talk about Operation Barbarossa. He said, that's right, I was in Operation Barbarossa. He said, we were 18 kilometers away from Moscow, and we were ordered south. He said, we killed everything we could find. We had chickens on our belts so we could have food to eat. I said, well, who do you think caused that? He said, the rich people. I said, well, how about the Pope and the Vatican? He said, well, my wife was Roman Catholic. He said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. That's how the conversation ended.
I'm not sure I understood this. Who was Freddie?
Freddie was a big Nazi, and he was brought over here to the United States. And I happened to meet him in the home of a former CIA assassin. He said, Eric, I want you to meet somebody here. His name's Freddie. He says he knew Hitler personally. In fact, I got a picture of him with Hitler. And so here I'm talking to this ex-Nazi in the living room of this John, who was a former CIA assassin. He's a little older now. But there he is. I brought over here. And then finally, when I confronted him with the Vatican running the entire World War II, he said, I don't want to talk to you anymore. He turned around and walked away.
I'm not sure about running World War II, but they were running the aftermath. That's for
No, they ran the whole thing, Barry. They ran the U.S., they ran Britain, they ran Russia, they ran Germany, they ran Japan, they ran everything. They ran all the sides during World War II. I prove it in my book in chapter 37, 150 pages of it.
You know what? Now is a good time. Promote the book.
Oh, I have my book, Vatican Assassins, Wounded in the House of My Friends. It's 1,836 pages with 760 pictures and portraits. And it starts with the creation of the Jesuit order. It runs all the way through to 9/11 and shows their progress, their suppression, their revival, their second 30 Years' War from 1914 to 1945. When they decimated Germany, they decimated the Jewish population of Europe. They destroyed the Reformation out of Europe, bombed majority Reformed churches in Europe. It was one huge, massive Council of Trent program, aided and abetted by Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Smoking Winston Churchill. And
first of all, let's give the address before. These are very profound
profundity. You can get my book at just go to 247worldradio.com or vaticanassassins.org, and you can download it, or you can purchase the ebook. I think it's for $40 or something. And I have a few other things up there you might want. So trust that you'll get the book. I also defend Israel there, defend the right to the land, and show how the Vatican runs the government there, just like they run this military government here in America, and hoping and praying that God would intervene and put an end to that.
Well, once again, maybe they have. You know, I talked with Daisy. They tried to get them out of all of Hebron. So far, okay? I'm not saying it's going to work forever, but so far the Jews are still in Kiryat Arba, still. But, all right, neither here nor there. Daisy's off. Let's go back to this trip of Francis. Now, this is weird. This is from the Jerusalem Post. Netanyahu met with the Pope, Francis, and Francis said, he said that Jesus was an Israeli Jew and spoke Hebrew. And Francis couldn't take it, and he said, no way, Aramaic. And
he spoke Aramaic, he spoke Hebrew, he spoke Greek, he was multilingual.
Well, more to the point, in the day-to-day language of Israel 2,000 years ago, it was Aramaic, which, by the way, is very close to Hebrew. But in the services, well, that was Hebrew. Nonetheless, you can't have myths like this. The Pope won one. All right, he won one against Netanyahu. What do you know? Jesus spoke.
No, he didn't win one. Netanyahu just didn't know what he was talking about.
Well,
he should have said, now listen, Pope Francis. No, listen, Mr. Pope Francis here. First of all, you're a Jesuit. Isn't that right? Isn't the maxim of the Jesuits is to deceive?
Jesuit?
Yes, he's a Jesuit. He's a stinking Jesuit. He's the supposed first Jesuit Pope, even though I think there are others before him, but at least openly he's a Jesuit Pope. So, but this wicked, evil man is a Jesuit. And so they'll say anything to facilitate a deception. While at the same time, Netanyahu, the 33rd degree Freemason, by the way, should have said, Pope Francis, we know that you Jesuits were involved in running Auschwitz and all the 6 death camps in Poland. We know that. That's right. Now, what we need from the Vatican are some reparations. I don't want reparations from Germany or from any other country. I want reparations from the Vatican because the Pope Pius XII ran the whole horrible mass murder. He should have said that to Francis, and Francis would have turned on his heel and walked away because he can't refute it.
I'm not sure that was an issue.
Why isn't it an issue?
Well,
would you come to see?
He didn't bring it up.
Would you come to see a man of a military order of the Society of Jesus, the Revived Knights Templars, who killed in excess of 6 million of your own people and are planning to do the same thing here in North America? Would you go to see him? Would you allow him in your country? I wouldn't. I'd make an international incident of it.
I'm on. And I like what you say, Eric. Thank you. Sorry to interject.
Oh, good. Daisy, you're back.
At least I'm glad somebody agrees with me there.
Well,
yes, I think it's a great idea. I really like to hear what you're saying.
You're going to hear the next half hour what me and Joel Boehnerman did with someone named Ron Pundak. Bet you don't know who he is.
Yes, I do.
He negotiated the Vatican Agreement with Israel in 1994.
Yeah.
Didn't know that?
Is that when they gave the Temple Mount to the Pope?
Basically.
Uh-huh.
Basically.
See,
all right.
all the Jews in Israel should have went ballistic. And should have said, listen, how dare you betray us to the Roman papacy that kills us in every generation, from the Inquisition to the Crusades and now to the Third Reich and even to the communists. Remember, communist Russia killed over 1 million Jews, Stalin, Hitler working together. I mean, how dare they do that?
Oh, boy. Well, I don't think they have the heartfelt enthusiasm for the subject. Israelis are dumb as hell.
You know what? There's so much disinformation. That's part of the problem, I think, Barry. I mean, the way they present everything is presented in such a false light, and people just buy it all. As you said, maybe it's dumb, maybe it's just naive, maybe it's the language problem that they read then use in Hebrew, and whatever they're told in Hebrew is what they buy. If they had more.
I read, now time has passed, but I read Hebrew plenty well. Look, the fact of the matter is that Pundak, that in short, Shimon Peres was foreign minister under Rabin. He was sloughed away, he was doing garbage work. Yossi Beilin, his deputy, was told to bring, now get this, the Oslo peace. Peres found out about it, and he brought in the Vatican peace. The peace treaties were signed within 2 weeks of each other. Ron Pundak was one of the 2 negotiators of the Vatican peace. My friend Lenny Wolf, I was at a Hanukkah party, and he said, you want to meet Ron Pundak? He's a good pal of mine. Joel and I, went to a Tel Aviv coffee house. He thought we were on his side. He was boasting and being effusive. He spilled the beans to us. He spilled the beans about the whole peace treaty. Oslo was Vatican.
Of course. It was a distraction so that Yossi Beilin and Peres could make that little negotiation in 93 to give the Temple Mount to the Pope, because that's what the Pope's always wanted. Remember, he always wants the revived Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem. Israel to the Pope is nothing more than the revived Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem, because the most important cities to the Pope are Jerusalem and Babylon.
Remember something, Beilin was working behind Peres' back. He was working with Rabin. But unfortunately, Peres found out at the last moment. I'll tell you how later if there's time, but Beilin sent his 2 wacky Tel Aviv idealists, Ron Pundak and Yair Hirschfeld, to negotiate Oslo Peace Accord. Oh gosh, oh my. Look, we have 3 minutes. My listeners won't believe this. We'll do our best to bring them in touch. Your reality is a bunch of bullshit. That's what I'm going to... Orlando was the same thing. We got a major problem with contrivances here. Major. Folks, we're back in 3 minutes. This is Barry Chamish.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie, with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character, as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy, in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Hi, folks. Barry Chamish back, somehow with great difficulty. I put together a good show. Look.
Is Eric still there?
Yeah,
Yes, yeah, I'm still here.
May I interject first?
No, not yet.
May I interject a second?
Yeah,
What?
let her talk, Barry.
Well, I can't plug myself, but no one will know where to get my books.
Oh,
All
okay.
my books are available at lulu.com. That's www.lulu.com. There's a search box right in my last name, Chamish, Chamish. And my website is barrychamish.com. Okay, Daisy, interject.
Yes. Okay, I wanted to tell you, I'm really sorry I missed what Eric said because of this computer glitch. But when he mentioned what he would have done with the Pope, I want you to know I'm really empathizing with you. And you should know that just about a year ago, it was Shavuot, which is Pentecost. I was at the tomb of King David. And I went again, by the way, I was there 2 nights ago again during Shavuot again. And I prayed there at the tomb of King David. And exactly what you said should have been done, I did. And I confronted the Catholics. I went up there to the room up there when they were having their mass. And I confronted them and I said exactly what you said that should have been done. And you should have seen the reaction. I mean, I have been banned from that room. They have my picture and everything. But
Sure.
you should have, yeah. I mean, I confronted them in person.
Good for you.
Yeah.
You have a
You
place
and
of
no-
honor.
You're the only
God
one, I
bless you.
think. I don't think anyone... Okay. Folks,
And-
my guest is the only one who
What-
confronted...
Remember, when I was in Israel the second to the last time, I met a gentleman there who was in real estate in Jerusalem. And he told me that 60% of the land in Jerusalem is owned by the papacy.
Oh,
That's
yeah, I
what he told me.
believe it. Yes, and you see their flags. I mean, it's infuriating. I was there 2 nights ago, and I walk there by Mamilla, and I see the flag of, I don't know if it's the Vatican or something on one of their properties, and it makes you so upset, you know.
Yeah.
How dare they even
How dare they?
own an inch of that place?
That's right.
And I want to tell you something else I did not discuss yet, and I'm putting my life on the line by telling you that. But when I went back up there in that room the second time, I went the first time, and it was actually, it was Pentecost. And the Greeks had their service in the morning, the Greek church, and they claimed that the Greek church was having a service there. And I went surreptitiously. It was not the Greeks. They were having a satanic worship in the cenacle room. And I was right there, and I saw it with my own eyes. And I confronted them, and they ejected me. In seconds, I had the security guard there. In seconds. They had a satanic worship there.
Daisy, do you know what a Pentecost?
Well, I mean, Shavuot is the word in English. Shavuot.
Do you know what a Pentecost?
I'm not a
About-
pentagram, you mean?
It's not,
About $1.
What?
Forget it. I got it.
something I wanted to mention also
Oh,
with regard to the papal influence there is when I was in Jerusalem there, I noticed that the embassy of the Vatican, they rebuilt this old building there, they repointed it, it was a very nice looking place, that on the top of it they had a kind of a stainless steel Virgin Mary with the 12 stars above her head.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
and that's not far from the president
The
of Israel.
Babylonian. Oh
Yeah,
my
there's-
God.
Oh yeah, and there I understand there's an underground tunnel from the embassy there over to the president's house underground.
Are you kidding?
No,
The
Wow.
president's house is in Rehavia.
Okay, well it's
Why
some
would
it's,
there
it's
be a
some leader
tunnel?
there in Israel. I don't know who it was, but when I spoke at that guy's place there in Jerusalem, you know who he was, Barry. I can't remember the guy's name, but he took me on a foot tour. And when he took me on a foot tour, he took me to this place, and he said, according to my friends, he said, we know that there's an underground tunnel here between the Vatican embassy
Wow.
and the prime minister's house, or whoever it was. Yeah.
No,
And I
that's
checked
a
it-
different
yeah.
house. The prime minister's house is not the president's house.
Or some house.
Prime
I'm not
Minister's
sure
house,
which one
yes.
it was, Barry, but it was some leader there
It's
in
the
Israel.
Prime Minister's house.
Prime Minister's house, that's right.
residence, yes.
And there was a gate that was open. We were going to walk in there, and all of a sudden, the secret police ran us off.
Wow. And I'll tell you something else. You know, IDC Herzliya, the school with political science. Well, guess what? I have a contact there who told me that the Vatican is constantly there. That's where they do all their policy. They have all their conferences, and I mean, they're really on top of it all. And they have priests there constantly from the Vatican all the time.
I'm not sure what IDC is.
You don't know IDC Herzliya? The interdisciplinary college.
I do now.
You never heard of IDC? They have like a terrorism. They teach terrorism. They teach political science. It's a college. They go up to the MA, I should say, MA level. But they're very influential when it comes to the government. They often have conferences there with all the top generals and top this and top that. And the Vatican has free access practically. You should know.
Well, all I'm trying to do now is revert to my research from, again, Ron Pundak's really spilled the beans to me and Joel Bainerman. Marek Halter, when Paris found out that Oslo was for real, he sent Marek Halter to the Pope with a letter offering all kinds of sites in Jerusalem if he would come into this peace process. By the way, the sites are, I don't know if you've ever heard of these things, the Church of the Annunciation in Nazareth, the Koheneculum on Mount Zion, Gethsemane on the Mount of Olives, that's the Last Supper room, Church of the Multiplication on the Kinneret, Paris. This is again from Pundak, gave them all to the Vatican.
Yep, that's right. Well, they're the Vatican's anyway. And furthermore, you have the Nicene Equestrian Order that they're guarding, that their most special church, not far from Mount Zion. What's that called? Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Church of the Holy Sepulchre. The Nicene Equestrian Order guard the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. That's their most sacred place there.
Who guards them?
The Knights of the Equestrian Order.
They're the ones who are on horseback?
Well, that's how they're described, but the equestrians, the Knights of the Equestrian Order, are higher than the Knights of Malta. The Knights of the Equestrian Order guard the headquarters of the Jesuits, Borgo Santo Spirito No. 5.
Wow.
The equestrians are lots of cardinals in there, but it's a military order. They have the most advanced weaponry that you can possibly imagine, and they guard the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and they're also throughout Israel.
And you should know that there is a horrible scandal of pedophilia right there. You know, like it's known in the old city of Jerusalem that you have all these priests that go around and they grab little children and do unspeakable.
Sure.
It's horrible what's going on.
It's institutionalized pedophilia. That's part of their religion.
Horrible. I mean, their headquarters are right there on Mount Zion. You should know. And it's there's a lot of information about that. But if anybody opens their mouth, they put their life on the line.
And here's Barry trying to infuse humor into this. Oh, gosh almighty. You know that Rabin opposed Paris and the Vatican takeover. For that, Paris organized his murder with Vatican oversight. I know all kinds of stuff, but I'm not going to... All right. All right. I can't do anything more than say it.
It's the international intelligence community of which Mossad is a part, carrying out the wishes of the Pope. That's all it is.
It's absolutely terrible. But you know what? They're coming to their end. It's getting there.
Oh, are they?
It's getting there. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And it's beyond them. Because the time has come, and there's one thing they have no power over, and that's God's will. And they have absolutely no power over that. And
they had plenty of power during the 40s. Listen, okay, fine.
Yep, I believe your Messiah one of these days is going to smash the power of the Roman papacy and crush it to death, and that'll be a wonderful day.
Yeah.
I'll be watching that, praise God.
Yeah. I don't know if you've been following all this satanic stuff going on. Have you been following the satanic stuff coming out? I mean, out of all places, and I'm really, frankly, in shock. I was just there last week, coming out of Geneva, Switzerland. It's just absolutely horrendous. And not just Geneva, in Switzerland, for instance, they built the tunnel. Have you heard about the new tunnel that they built in Switzerland?
No, I
And when
haven't.
they've been working on it for years, and when they finally completed it, they had a satanic worship after that. It was just horrendous. And then I don't know if you've been following what the CERN is doing in Geneva. I mean, I grew
They've
up
been
there.
going around and round and round and
Yeah, I
smashing
used to work
protons.
I used to work right next to the CERN years ago, and it never meant anything to me. But they have been doing experiments that, okay, on the scientific level, it's all very nice, but the bottom line is they're trying to attract all these satanic spirits into the world. And it's just unbelievable what's going on. Really unbelievable.
And here's ultra-conservative Barry back.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see it happening right on Mount Zion when they do satanic worship. There's a lot and the Jesuits, it's known. I mean, they're satanic.
That's right.
And they're trying to attract Satan to
That's right, all the devils. That's right,
you know?
through their satanic worship.
That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing these days.
Yep. The same way in Rome. Yep.
Let me go to my stuff that actually...
Oh, by the way, I want to mention, Barry, that article that you and Joel did in 1993 was just wonderful. I'm so glad you put it out there. You guys were heroes of the day, and I put a lot of that article on my PowerPoint.
You know, it's amazing. It was based so much on Haaretz. You couldn't ask for more conservative and left-wing and all this crap. They published the big cable that the foreign ministry had agreed to sign the peace accord if Israel transferred authority of Jerusalem to the Vatican.
Yeah.
That is from Haaretz. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, again, my research is so much more based on... All right, that's it. That was part of the article.
Because remember, the Vatican has always wanted to rebuild the Hebrew temple. That was the purpose of the Knights Templars. They were called the Poor Knights of the Temple of Solomon. And their whole purpose was to take Jerusalem from the Muslims so that they could rebuild the Hebrew temple. They've wanted to do that since the 12th century, 13th century. Still their plan. If you read in Days of Our Years by Pierre Van Passen, he talks about the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, and he's there talking to him in Jerusalem, and the Grand Mufti says, these Jews, they want to rebuild that temple.
And what's the significance of that?
Because it further validates the fact that there's a quest to rebuild the third Hebrew temple, not for the benefit of the Jews, but for the benefit of the Pope of Rome. That's what his Knights Templars want.
Well, that's a different interpretation than, my first guess wasn't that.
No, that's why they were called the Poor Knights of the Temple of Solomon. And when the Templars were suppressed in 1312, they came back as the Jesuit order in 1534. And so the Jesuits are nothing more than the revived Knights Templars, except 1,000 times worse. Yes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Now, they use that symbol, ISIS, IHS. The Templars use that symbol.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to add again my conservative stuff. Daisy may remember Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem, Shmuel Meir.
No, I don't.
All right. Well, he announced that the Vatican would be granted extraterritorial status in Jerusalem. He didn't last much longer after that.
Well, remember, Jerusalem has the United Nations has a treaty with Jerusalem. That's, Treaty 181? This is an exclusive treaty between the United Nations and Jerusalem.
To do what?
For its protection.
I would expand on that. I would expand a bit.
The Pope's United Nations has a treaty with Jerusalem to the exclusion of the nation of Israel.
And what terms are in this treaty?
I'm not sure. It's something we can check out, but there's a special relationship between the Pope's United Nations and Jerusalem.
Did you mention the police? Is that what you said?
No, I mentioned the city, that there's a special treaty. Okay.
Because you could tell, it's very, very clear wherever you go, especially in East Jerusalem, that the police is not acting for the benefit of the Jews, they're acting for the benefit of the enemies of the Jews.
Well, of course.
Over and over and over. So the question is, who is... Why do you say of course?
Because Jerusalem can never be allowed to be exclusively Jewish under Jewish rule. It can never be allowed that. Why, they would prosper. So we have to have the continual agitation with the Arabs there, especially the Arab Muslims. But Jerusalem cannot be lost again to the Muslim world. We have to maintain it. We have to maintain it in the nation of Israel, because that's why we call it World War I and World War II, the Second 30 Years' War. But we will never allow Jerusalem to be self-governing by patriotic Jews who want to rule for the benefit of their own people.
Again, we have to ask...
Keep on dreaming.
When Rabin captured all of Jerusalem in 67, the Jews rushed to the Western Wall. He said, "Nah, the Waqf gets it."
Yeah, he gave it away in 24 hours.
Yeah,
I know.
He gave it to the Waqf. Yeah, what for? Because they're working for the Pope. That's why.
Why would the Pope care that an Arab, really Jordanian Arabs, get the Temple Mount? What's it?
Because the Pope has to have this open. He has this open but false policy that he's for the Arabs. That's his open but false policy. And so therefore his open policy needs to facilitate the Arabs, so we'll do that. But his secret but true policy is most assuredly to rebuild that Hebrew temple, which the Arabs do not want. It's a balancing act.
Again, you're rebuilding it for who?
For the Pope. For the Vatican. That's why they have the Temple Mount. That's why Yossi Bellin and the others negotiated it and gave the Temple Mount to the Vatican in 1993. It's for the Pope, so we can have his third temple there. That's what the Templars have always wanted.
You know, they have their Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It's really very close by.
Not good enough.
No?
They want the temple. They want the temple
they can dream on. They will never have it. You have to realize that, Eric.
You think the temple will not be rebuilt? You think it will not be rebuilt?
It will be rebuilt, but not on their terms, because this is what has been prophesied. They can wish all they want. It's not going to happen according to the way they want. It's just not. I guess I'm trying to refute. I'm trying to refute the belief that the Jews are there and they want to build a third Hebrew temple for themselves. That's not going to happen.
No one says that.
It's going to be.
No one believes that.
Well, it's going to be built for the benefit of the Vatican.
No, it won't. No, it won't. That's what they want, but it won't be.
You think it will not be built?
I think it will be built, but the way Hashem, the way God wants it, not the way the Vatican, these evil, demonic, pedophiliac, perverted, I don't know what to call them, not the way they want it. Satan is losing his power.
How many compliments can you give them in one sentence?
Right? Isn't that amazing?
What flattery. All right, let's go. Do you remember the deputy mayor? No, I got a better one. Member of Knesset, Abraham Shapiro, actually. Do you remember him?
Nope.
He opened his mouth and he said that all Vatican property in Jerusalem was, to become tax exempt. But the big one was Mount Zion was to be given to the Pope in perpetuity. Boy, did he suffer after he opened that. Let's say he went bankrupt. Let's say. Good? Well.
He betrayed. He betrayed his own people. Any Jew that gives anything to the Pope betrays his own people.
That's not what he said.
Well, what did he say?
He said that large tracts were being given of Mount Zion to the Vatican in perpetuity.
In perpetuity? That means they're not going to go back to Israel. If it's in perpetuity.
No, that's not what it means at all. He opened his mouth, he complained, and the next day he was bankrupt. He was harassed. His properties were taken from him. No, you misread that entirely.
Mm-hmm. Well, you didn't explain it correctly, Barry. I'm sorry to say. It
Uh,
sounded as though he was responsible for that decision. The
no,
way
he was opening his
presented it.
mouth that it was being done.
Okay.
I see. Okay, I see. So for letting out the secret, that happened to him.
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes.
Well, good for him. He let out the secret.
He paid very dearly.
There we go. Finally.
He was a hero. They told the truth. He paid, unfortunately, but he told the truth.
Mm-hmm.
He was the biggest and richest real estate magnate in Israel who, you're right, he paid his price. But he said the same thing. Mount Zion was to be given to the Pope in perpetuity. That's a quote.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad he told the truth and he warned his countrymen.
Yeah. But there's one thing you have to understand. The redemption is coming. We're very, very, very close to the Mashiach, to Messiah. It's really, we're talking maybe a couple of years. It's getting so close.
What if you're wrong?
If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What can I say? But according to the majority of the great sages, we're getting very, very close. It's just a matter of time. I mean, I shouldn't put a time limit, but apparently we're very, very close. And all these evildoers are going to disappear. Nothing's going to be left of them. Nothing. So it's pretty horrible. It looks terrible, but they're going to pay so hard. They're going to be punished so hard for everything, all the harm they're doing. So, we shouldn't despair.
You really believe this, right?
People,
there's no
yes,
doubt
I do.
in your mind.
Yes,
no doubt
there's
whatsoever.
No doubt whatsoever. And a person like Eric is going to be blessed because he's doing so much good. He really is. And you too, Barry. You've done a lot of good. And I believe that you both are going to get some very good things in your lives. That's what I believe.
I'm just going to say this. I'm not looking for prophetic anything. I'm just an old-fashioned journalist gathering facts.
Fine.
Well,
fine.
Well, okay.
Fine, but I mean, that was important. Whatever you did was very important. And, I really appreciate what Eric is doing. I think he is fighting the good fight. And no good deed goes
unpunished.
Exactly.
Unpunished.
You know what? It's an old story, but Peres was revealed by just before Pesach. By Haaretz and all the rabbis who invited, for Pesach dinner. They canceled it. His explanation was Haaretz was right, but they made a mistake. We blotted out the word not. That in fact, we will not be handing over property to the Vatican. Someone just whited out not. Now here's the problem. The rabbis bought it and re-invited him. You can't stop the stupidity of the Jews. That's the problem.
They really are. They're so naive. They're so naive.
It's so sad. I have a Jewish lady friend, and her mother was in Auschwitz as a little girl. And she said that the SS guards had a crucifix on their belt buckles at Auschwitz.
Really?
And a statue of the Virgin Mary entering in the gates. No.
Oh my God.
So that was all hidden in the
press. That.
Well, they were told.
Well, what that means is that the Jesuits were running Auschwitz.
Oh.
And they ran the SS. Of course, the SS was patterned after the Jesuit order, because Himmler, the Bavarian Roman Catholic, did so.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little stretch for me. Daisy, your reaction?
Well, I'm very glad Eric came, and I hope this was a useful conversation.
Oh, I think it was. And by the way, I've been winging it. I had no information.
You did a good job.
Thank you. Really, I'm just doing what I did way back in the 90s, and it all came out. Every bit came out to be true. Everything. And it's very upsetting.
Israel's not going to be destroyed, Barry. I just want to remind you.
Well, I'm telling you one thing. I'm back in the heat of Orlando. That was the same as Hebron. It was the exact same. Whoever is doing this, and I do have a list of people who I think are behind evil.
Yeah,
True.
Eric, why are they
Like
doing
the CIA, like the
What?
intelligence community.
Why
Come
they
on, let's
doing
just
this
say
in
it.
America right
No,
now?
I would say the Council on Foreign Relations is mucking up things in a huge. No, it's beyond.
The enforcers for the CFR are the CIA. Victor Marchetti's work, Cult of Intelligence, says the CIA top heads met at the CFR many times in New York.
Wasn't Marchetti the one that poisoned Joel Bainerman?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Oh, gosh almighty, it's an awful world. Vincent Marchetti, he was the Washington guy who put a tie on him. And you know what? It's another story. It never ends. Folks, this has been a very enlightening interview and confusing as hell to me. Thank you both. You bounced off each other very well. Good night,
Pleasure
folks.
to be with you, Barry. Pleasure to be with you, Daisy.
You too, Eric. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Good night, all.
Bye, Barry.
Bye, Daisy.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.